The primary observation from seeing people is that they enjoy it because it's really funny. They seem to go off thinking architecture can be more approachable. So I think that's for an ordinary people who's not architects, they enjoy it in the sense that it is very easy to understand and also livening up things. You know, I say like horny house and then, oh, horny house, oh. So they get these kind of inspiration. I'm able to inspire people into another dimension by using architecture. Some kind of messages or understanding of what I understand about the world. Sometimes people are inspired by what they hear and they have a fresher look, not only architecture, on other things. So I think it's expanded, conveying an idea on many themes. So people can read whatever they want to read. Yeah, I think it's about energy and liquidity of it. I think because I often talk about Seoul as a kind of city of liquid, meaning it's not actually liquid, but if you take a time span and run it really quickly, you see your next building go away in 3 years, your neighbor disappearing, and then new building coming in. If you think that those two contexts you thought about, then they are gone forever. It's kind of always a fluctuating situation. It means that you yourself can reference not so many things, but maybe your inner thought or inner being or something that is far greater than your context nearby. I think drastically new architecture can be born out of this situation where immediate context doesn't really have any relevance to you. So you have to be internal, being a monk, or you have to reach out far away from your culture. Well, I start in the city with the regulation. We make 3D boundary and in a red transparent box. So we know where the limit is. Well, I think I'll play around it. For example, okay, the regulation cuts from this road view, so it has this line, diagonal lane from this road and another diagonal this road, okay? So basically, if you build maximum, you come with this space, right? So then, first of all, I don't say, I'm gonna fight for the rule, this is a strange shape. I just accept with it, and I play inside it. First, I could play around inside the box, and then if I wanna go outside, what I do is I do movable architecture. I move up, like this, I come back, like a joker. Move up and down. Because the regulation does not specifically says anything about moving things. Whatever the rules are, I'll be able to play around it. Not in a saying that I'm going to being negative about it, but I'm saying why not, do something that is interesting, that really plays on the edges, like the wave. If you told the wave not to come over here, what do you think the wave will do, Well, I think there is a lot of playful elements I put into the house. For example, as I'm wearing this diagonal means movement. In a house, diagonal means staircase. So I use a lot of active platforms that is leveled in many ways. Naturally makes movements. So there's a lot of dynamism. I use a lot of light volume that comes in all the way. You could call it an atrium. Even though our structure might be small, I try to envision a lot of channel of space because it gives depth to space. So I try to bring dizziness to space. A kind of space where it's a really 3D, a kind of you might fall. I mean, every space that doesn't give you that is a 2D space, I think. Where you like vertigo, oh, I might fall, oh, I might fly up. I'm making the extreme, the experience of space, because we are more susceptible for the height than the expanse. I try to make kind of a vertical or at least a diagonal experience or a kind of a spiral experience. Oh yeah, a lot of inspiration. For example, the first important thing is a kind of how high-tech these ancient architecture is. You can open up the whole building, all the penetration go up and fall. So those kind of lightness I learned from, and sense of scale, that like small courtyards within the house, a sense of their small scale differences, ups and downs. Because even in the doors, you have to move up the door. The door is not like these, but it has a thing on top, so you have to move yourself. So it has a lot of action involved, and sometimes the doors are small, so you bend your neck. And also the shape of it itself. I don't actually mimic the whole shape of the house, but I'm saying kind of floating ideas. How in a traditional house on stilts, and they seem like they're floating. I try to get inspired from a lot of things. Sometimes I get inspired by the clients. For example, if the client's wife has a big hat, the big hat, oh, that's very interesting. Maybe that hat might have something to do with this site. Or if the husband and wife has a quarrelsome relationship, I envision a house with two heads, never meeting house. But they negate it and they become friends again. There's a house for a retired professor. with his wife. It's supposed to be a kind of an inspiration from butterfly, but it looks like a crab instead. But it started out as a butterfly flapping its wing. So what I'm saying is that even the shape-wise, it's kind of vernacular, like thatched roof house, but it has kind of a courtyard that is a small scale and a pavilion that is floating above, diagonal spatial qualities within. All these things I've talked about is sort of here and in a compact form, and kind of a pavilion that is put forward to a future. But to be honest, I don't explicitly explain these, this is a representation of Korea. I'm talking about these because these experience or visits to these old houses inspired. Yeah. That's why I'm talking about in these terms. But I don't consciously always say, I'm going to be the translator of this traditional architecture. No. Drawing has a meaning itself. Like, for example, I do drawings without any commission. It's an architecture in itself. Like these walking pavilions, it's a drawing. It could be built in the future, but I'm envisioning it can be an end product by itself. I can imagine the space. I can imagine how it moves. Sometimes I draw a drawing inspired by what I've built already. Oh, I could have done this. So that possibility is translated into a drawing. Be something very trivial. I just draw a soup I had, but that someday will turn into an architecture. So for example, here, I carry a doodle book. In Brussels, I had a lot of mussel soup. They're very famous. I either draw this mussel architecture or draw a soup of mussels. Mussel could mean sexual, mussel could mean kind of a shy away architecture hidden by a really hard shell. The food I have can be translated into a food architecture diagram. When I was at MIT, my thesis, there were really contentions. I chose one of the bridges in Korea. There were 11 bridges at that time. And I used the bridge as a starting point. Sprayed to all make it red, to make it surreal to start with. So turning everyday object into different by using paint. A floating love hotel and a crematorium. And the love hotel has a nightclub on top. On top of the nightclubs, you see the traffic jams. And you see cars like with the red lights from a Japanese animation. Like these bugs walking around. You see this bridge that you go down and see the scenery and you suddenly feel you're drawn. You feel somebody saying jump and you jump. You fall down. It's sort of suicide experience bridge. And then when you're dead, you're burned and you are sourced as an energy and you're reincarnated to run the love hotel. Energy revolutionizing. Yeah.
여기가 여기 간섭 없나? 있죠. 일로 가면 안 되지.